If you own a plumbing company, your real job is no longer running calls, managing trucks, or watching numbers. Your real job, in my opinion, is becoming the shop great plumbers want to work for. Because when plumbers choose your company, they stay longer, they refer other plumbers, and when someone finally leaves a bad shop, your shop is the one they already know. So, in this episode of Trade Traction, I'm going to show you the 3 things you must do differently if you want to stop working for free, finally become profitable, and build the plumbing company you originally dreamed of. Remember those dreams? Let's get into it. Hey, I'm Dennis the Apprentice on most socials. I ran my own business for 25 years and sold a couple years ago finally to private equity. And I took a couple years off, and now I'm seeing so many contractors struggling. Some of them brand new, some of them 2 or 3 or 4 years old, and some of them, several, maybe a couple decades old, and they're still struggling. And I have a question for you. If the trades are so great, then why are you broke? And I have an answer for you. It's just because you haven't done enough things right yet. There's several things you got to do right. You can't just do one thing right and then later do something else right. You have to do a number of things right over and over and over to get these things to work. And it can be maddening. I remember when we were struggling, and we'd been in business 35 years and we're struggling, and we're trying to figure things out. And I knew that it's kind of like tuning in a radio. When you turn the radio on back in the day, remember the radios back in the day? I haven't turned the radio on forever, but when you turn the radio on, it'd be static, right? And noise. And you'd have to dial it in to get a station. And then did you like the station? Sometimes you liked it, and sometimes, oh no, not that, not country western, right? And so you'd have to tune some more until you got the right station. It's like, okay, that's music to my ears. That's the kind of music I like, right? That's kind of how your business is. It's not that the radio or the tuner doesn't work. It's like you've got to dial it in. And so if you're struggling in business, which most contractors are, the truth is we all smile and we say everything's great, we're busy. But when the truth behind closed doors, when we're really honest with each other, things aren't going so well, are they? Like for me, for a long time, it wasn't going well. And my smile was fake and I hated it. It was exhausting. So anyway, here's 3 things I think you need to do different. You got to figure these things out. The things I figured out in my company that helped us ultimately become really profitable. We ended up becoming a $12 million company before we sold with double-digit profit. And we had a beautiful company. We loved it. I loved to be there. Do you love working at your company? Honestly, I did. And here's 3 hints of what things that I did and what I think you should do if you want to get your company doing much better. One is you have to let the plumbers have the limelight. A lot of plumbing companies are started by great plumbers. My company was my father-in-law's company, and he was a fantastic plumber. I might say one of the best, or might I say one of the best. I'll never forget this day. I didn't come from a plumbing background. And so we stopped by this job. We were doing estimates one day. We were driving around, and we dropped by this job site, and we got there, and the customer was in the basement. She had just written the final payment. The inspector just left. We'd passed inspection. The customer was obviously delighted. She had paid our plumber. Our plumber handed the check to us for final payment. Everything was great, and he was just cleaning things up. Everything was great. There was nothing wrong. And my father-in-law, and I bet you've done this too, because I've done it myself, but he said, why'd you run the pipe that way? I mean, couldn't you have run it this way? This would have saved you 45 minutes and $3.90. And I saw 2 things. This is what's important about a ride along. You know, when you ride along, you see things differently than when you're directly engaged with somebody. I saw the customer all of a sudden have doubt. Like, well, if that's wrong, what else is wrong? Right? And did I pay too much because he took longer than he should have? I could see it all over her face. You know what else I saw? I saw a proud, delighted plumber deflate. Because you know what? My father-in-law was right. It was a better way. It was a better way. The thing is, there's nothing wrong with what we did. Everything's great. It was code, customers happy, everything's great. Not a thing wrong with it. Isn't there always a better way? Almost always. Like when you think about it, if you could do things over, wouldn't you do things a little bit different? But see, so many plumbing companies are run by awesome plumbers, and we've got this thing inside us, this ego thing where we gotta make sure everybody knows that we're still number one, maybe even though we haven't plumbed for a while, right? Or maybe we're still in the field, but we kind of want to maintain, we want to be the leader. And there's this feeling like we have to be the best to be the leader. You don't have to be, you have to be a good leader to be the leader, but you don't have to be the best. So is the coach of the football team the best football player? He might have been back in the day, but he isn't anymore, right? But he has some insights, right? And so for me, I didn't come from plumbing, and unfortunately my father-in-law had a heart attack. And so I got thrown right into management before I intended to become a plumber. I love construction, and I was engaged. I was going to become a plumber, but he had that heart attack, and then I got forced right into having to run the crews and go sell the jobs myself. And I kind of had that background, so it worked. But here's the deal. I helped my plumbers feel good about themselves. Not when they didn't deserve it, but when they did a good job, I said, good job. When they got a job under budget, I said, good job, it was under budget. We made money, dude. When the job passed inspection the first time, I said, good job, we passed the inspection the first time. Why not? And so, so my father-in-law's time to be the best plumber, like, he kind of held on to it. He's still the best plumber, to be honest. And that we're getting kind of personal here, but I'm sending this video to you because this is kind of personal. This is one of the major challenges I see with plumbing contractors is plumbers not wanting to let go of the limelight. Is that what it is? What is it? Everybody might be a little bit different, but at some point, you got to let your plumbers become the heroes. Like if you're owning a company, maybe your plumbing hero days are over. Now your job is to become a fantastic owner, manager. That's the new thing, and you need to look for peers that are better than you, that have done it before, and get some coaching on how to be a good leader. But plumbing, yeah, you got this, dude, and you had your time and you rock the world. Now let your employees rock the world and help them rock the world. Does that make sense? So that's one thing I see that really holds people back, because what you don't realize is you're deflating the morale of the techs if you don't let them be the best, right? And that's tough to do, and I'm kind of getting personal here, but this is personal development. I don't know if you figured this out yet or not, but owning a company is like paying for a personal development course, except you're on stage, right? And you're supposed to know what you're doing because you're the boss, right? So learn that. So on most socials, I call myself Dennis the Apprentice. It's because I'm always learning. I'm always pushing into the next thing, and I'm always overwhelmed and learning new stuff. I just like that. I love to learn. So yeah, you've had your limelight as the best plumber in the world. So now encourage your techs to be the best. They'll love it. They're seeking, most people, I am, and our employees are seeking validation. They're seeking appreciation. Like who tells them they did a good job, right? Most of the families are wondering why they took us so long to get home, right? So they need validation and they need support and affirmation that they're doing a good job and that they're on the right track, right? So do that for them and they will love you for it. They'll be loyal to you for it and they will work harder because of it. All right. Number 2 is you have to understand profit better than most owners do. Most contractors out there are trying to figure out how to be profitable still. And profit is kind of simple. You just have to charge more than it costs to be in business. But it's simpler said than done, right? It's actually hard. It's simple, but it's hard. Does that make sense? But you got to figure this out. You got to figure out how to be profitable because you can't. In the introduction to this video, I said, and finally build the company you originally dreamed of, you once dreamed of. When you started your company, didn't you dream of some idealisms? Like, in my company, this is the way it's going to be. And then reality slaps you upside the head and you're just trying to stay alive till next week. You're trying to make payroll. And if this isn't you, congratulations. But this is the journey of most contractors. And so you got to figure out this profit thing. Because on the other side of profit, one of my coaches that helped me the most, what he said was, Dennis, all the fun things, I had lots of good ideas. I'm an idea guy and I've got lots of fun things I want to do. I got lots of cool things I want to do with my company. But all those fun things, and is on the other side of profit. So he said on the other side of profit is fun. And when I say fun, I don't mean roller coasters and lollipops. I'm not trying to get to Disneyland. I mean giving our guys time off to go hunting, or giving them enough bonuses so they can buy the truck they want, or paying enough so they can actually buy a house, or having tool insurance, or every time we break a record, we buy the shop breakfast or lunch, or cool things like that. The fun things, the things. Maybe you want to let all your guys go hunting. You want everybody to have at least 1 week for hunting. Like, everybody's got some idealism. Like, when I own my company, this is what I'm going to do. I call that's the fun. All that is on the other side of profit. You got to figure that out first. And it's going to take you some time to figure it out. It doesn't just profit doesn't just grow on trees, and profit doesn't fall out of the sky. Profit comes from your customers. Your customers give you the profit. You got to figure out how to get more money for doing more work and learn how to be efficient with the things that you do so you keep some left over. And it's a big topic. But I'm telling you, you're not going to have fun. You're not going to experience any sort of freedom. And you're not going to be able to build the company you once dreamed of until you figure out the profit thing. It is not going to happen. Trust me. I tried it for 25 years. And every time it got tight, it wasn't fun. Like, no fun. When there's not profit, it's no fun. You're probably there. Most companies are. So you got to figure this out. And you're probably going to need help doing it. I needed help from several people doing it. Third, your company has to stand for something bigger than money. Like, really? Do you just come plumb and work and get paid and go home? Is that what everybody's doing? How boring is that? How bland? How uninspiring is that? Your company has to have a purpose. What I mean by that is, if your company disappears, will the community miss you? It's a big question. If your company disappeared, would anybody care? Let's say yes. Every company, I think, especially with these young kids, if you're trying to figure out how to find a good apprentice, one way to find a good apprentice is start to have some purpose. These young people, I was talking to a young kid the other day. I talk to lots of young people because I really promote the trades in the high schools and stuff and trade schools. And this young person, I was giving him, why don't you do drop shipping online? Like, you can make money from your room and stuff. And he's He's like, well, that's unethical. And he had all these things. And the truth is, he needs a little bit of real world, right? But he really cared about how he made his money. I don't know where that came from. That wasn't in my DNA. I'm a Gen Xer. Like I came from nothing. And how do I make money? I smashed aluminum cans and turned them in for recycling. I made good money doing that. I picked fruit. I grew up on an apple orchard and a cherry orchard. I picked fruit and earned money. I just like, how do I make money? Tell me how, I'll do it. I was looking for money. This new crop of kids, it seems like they might even have a little bit more moral or something than we did. Because they kind of care what they do for work. And if your company has a purpose, that can make a big difference. Let's talk about that. What do you mean by purpose? What do you mean by purpose? Well, for our company, we kind of stumbled into this. We were looking for purpose. Like we were looking like, well, maybe we should get behind breast cancer. Like maybe 1% of everything we make of all our profit goes to breast cancer. And then maybe we could donate to breast cancer and we could have a pink trunk driving around. But that didn't quite feel genuine. That was kind of like bandwagon stuff. Like other people did that. One time we did this food bank thing. We discovered we had a food bank, like literally 2 or 3 blocks away was the food bank. And so in the fall, in the fall season, we got barrels, and we said, "Hey, we're donating to the food." At the end of the call, we'd give them a little piece of paper that said, "Hey, donate anything, any amount of food, and we'll give $5 off your bill and donate it to the food bank." We were shocked that people would bring bags, sometimes grocery bags out. It was like, you could have given us a can of peas and we would have given you $5 off, but you bring us a bag. And that was kind of interesting. And so then we'd have this, after a few days, our plumbers would have a barrel of food and we would put the hand truck and roll it down to the food bank and say, we delivered a barrel of food. And so we started to track the barrels of food. And it was kind of cool. It was kind of, we'd like, the guys would come in saying, look at this. They got paid. They passed inspection. They got a review. But you know what they did? They came in going, look at this lady gave me this whole bag of food. And we kind of go through it and be tempted to take some of it, but we wouldn't. We never did. But we would just be shocked at what people would give us for $5 donation to the food bank. And then we'd roll it down there and we started to keep track of it. And I was kind of going, oh, this is kind of cool. This is kind of fun. Like we could say, hey, we had our best month ever. We donated 20 barrels of food to the food bank, right? But then the food bank closed down and moved away. And it kind of disrupted that. But that little purpose, do you see what happened there? Have you noticed your reviews? The customer never says that your plumbing was to code. It's other things, like you were on time and you were clean and you were professional and you pet the dog or something, right? It's kind of that same thing with our techs. Like my techs they got paid well, they made bonus, but they were all excited about how much food they got. That's purpose. Something other than money, a higher calling, something more than just money. Like money makes the world turn around. And I love money. And I'm sure you do too, especially when we don't have any. But at some point, is there something else we're working for? Or is it just money? And so we were kind of thinking we might do that, and it kind of fell apart on us, right? The system that we started to get in place kind of disappeared. You know what turned into our purpose? Training. We started promoting. We had one of our journeyman plumbers. I know I'm going long here a little bit. We're at 20 minutes, but just a couple more points. And I think this is really important. It will help you tremendously with your company. One of my best plumbers, we brought his nephew on. His nephew started the day after he graduated high school. Literally, he graduated on Sunday, and he came to work for us Monday. And he knew nothing. And we kind of dedicated ourselves to giving this kid the best apprenticeship ever. And it wasn't even a formal, it was just kind of an understanding. Hey, this is our friend's nephew. Let's give this guy our best shot. And so we decided to start coming in at 6:30 Wednesday morning. We had a service meeting at 7:30. And so we started coming in at 6:30. We said, "Can we come in at 6:30? We'll study code. We'll go through the study guide of the code book, and we'll just do those multiple choice questions, right?" And we started that. And you know what? 2 or 3 of my licensed plumbers showed up every morning. Of course, I brought donuts and coffee. I tried to get there first and have the lights on and music on, lights on, music on, heat on, donuts, coffee. 5 key ingredients to a successful meeting. And pretty soon, everybody showed up. And then there were a couple guys that would make fun of us. They kind of come in with their sunglasses and kind of wag their head and act like we were stupid. And there was this one guy in particular that did that, but he didn't last long. And it wasn't long, maybe a couple months, and he was gone. And when he left, what was really weird is all of a sudden the whole company showed up. See, he was out in the parking lot trying to be cool and keeping the cool kids not joining us. It was kind of like high school. Like he was like, you know what I mean? It was kind of, he was like competing against us inside studying code. But when I got rid of him, he left, he got rid of himself. Pretty soon, everybody showed up at 6:30. And pretty soon, my whole company showed up at 6:30, and we're all learning code. And the reason we started doing that is for this apprentice, who was the nephew of one of my favorite plumbers, one of my best plumbers. And that started us on a journey of training. And I discovered that when you have apprentices that want to learn and you combine that with plumbers that want to teach, a really cool thing happens. So our purpose actually became more inward. We became known for a training culture. In fact, we built a training lab. When I would interview plumbers, the last thing I would show them, I'd show them my training lab. They would say, "Training lab? What are you talking about?" Here, I'm in Washington. And in Washington, we hardly have any trade schools. Trade school is not required, so there's not much around. And the ones that are really hard to get to, right? Plus, everybody's super busy. So I showed this journeyman plumber quit the day before. He could have worked anywhere. He had like 7 or 8 interviews with that day. I was the last one. And I'm kind of like, well, how do I get this guy? This guy's really good. How am I going to land this guy? You know, I want him, of course. And he says, "Let me show you my lab." And he's like, "Lab? What are you talking about?" So I opened our lab, and it wasn't very big, but it had 3 furnaces in it, 2 tanklesses, a sump pump, a bathtub with a waste overflow, and then a rough-in wall. And we would go back there on Thursdays and train in there. And that's a whole nother story. But when this plumber saw that, he's like, "Oh, this is where I want to work. This is where I want to work. When can I start?" I'm like, "What?" And that's when I learned that most good plumbers, probably like yourself, want to leave a legacy. We want to pass on to a younger generation what has been so good to us. It's kind of what I'm doing right now, right? There's something in our DNA that we want to pass it on. And so that kind of became our purpose. We became known for that. One of my last hires before I sold, he came to work for us because he was working at another company. And every time they went into a boiler room, the plumber would back out and say, "This is over my head. Call Dennis's company," because we were really good at boilers, because we did lots of training on boilers, because we liked it. It was technical, it was hard, and not everybody could do it. So we got really good at it. And so I said, "How'd you find my company?" And that was his story. He says, "Well, I was working at another company, and every time we went into a boiler room, the plumber, my plumber I worked with, said, 'This is over my head, call you guys.' And so I want to work for you guys because I want to learn how to be like you guys. I think this stuff is really cool." So that kind of became our purpose, is teaching. We eventually built another big lab. We eventually had a big, huge meeting room, and all the supply houses would call us up and say, "Hey, we got the InSinkerator rep in town," or whoever it was, "Can we come put on a training at your shop?" And we'd say, "Sure." And they would buy the dinner. They'd give us a credit card. One of my office people would order pizzas up on the supplier's house credit card. And then we would put they would invite, and so would we, a bunch of plumbing companies around. And I would have 10, 15 different plumbing companies at my shop being trained on something else. We became known for a training shop. And if you want to learn plumbing, this is where you go. And if you want to teach, if you want to work with apprentices that want to learn plumbing, they've got it. We kind of got a high standard for apprentices. I'm really big on apprentices, but our standard was really high. Like if you came, you're not here for a job. If we found out you were just here for a job, you kind of got flushed out, because my plumbers wanted to teach interested, enthusiastic young people plumbing. So that was our purpose, and it galvanized the crew. People hardly left. Sometimes when I had to let a guy go, several times they cried because they're like, there's nowhere else to work. Like, if I can't work here, I want to change careers. I'd be like, hold on, this isn't a cult. Like we think we're pretty cool, right? Because we're building this, but there's other good plumbing companies around, right? But do you get the point? We built a sticky culture around purpose. That was our purpose. And if you weren't into being the best at the craft, you wouldn't like working for my company. It wasn't a good fit. If you were a slacker, if all you cared about was hitting top dollar and going as fast as you can, and your work was sloppy and not good, and you had callbacks, you would get flushed out of my company very quickly, because that was the culture. And so that's what I mean by purpose. And you could do the same thing. It worked for me very, very well, but you could have a different purpose. You could have a different purpose around hunting. Like, you want all your guys to get time off to go hunting, plus their 2 weeks vacation, right? Wouldn't that be fun? That's on the other side of profit. And then maybe you start wearing camo, and maybe there's a little camo on your trucks. And then maybe you put, hey, if you're a hunter, you get a special deal on water heaters this month. And you just kind of make that your theme or your purpose, so that someday if your company disappeared for some reason, the community would be sad. They're like, oh, well, now what do we do? Who does that? I guarantee you my market is sad, because my company is different than it used to be. The training's gone. The people that bought it don't train anymore. There's no apprentices there learning. The area is sad. It's worse off because our company is different than it used to be, because they lost their purpose, because it wasn't their purpose. It was mine and ours. Does that make sense? So what's your purpose? And if you have a purpose, it can galvanize the crew to stay beyond money. Do you know how you're kind of afraid a little bit of your top guys leaving? You start seeing people offering big, huge signing bonuses and stuff, and you're like, oh crap, we had a bad week. I hope my guy's not looking for a job. That kind of fear goes away when everybody's tied into and a part of a purpose more than just money. Does that make sense? So that's just 3 things. There is so much to business, but those are 3 things that I did to, help my company be successful and to help attract plumbers. And again, like, the whole point of this video was how to become the shop of choice so that plumbers stay, they refer friends, and then when eventually plumbers at other companies are going to get tired of what's going on there, and they're going to look around and they're going to hear about your company, or they might identify with a purpose and say, hey, I'd like to work for a company that's not just about money. Have you ever heard that before? There's a lot of plumbers out there like that. So if you like this kind of thing, I invite you, like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. This is the kind of content I'm putting out. My podcast is called Trade Traction. Stop spinning your wheels. Stop working for free, right? Stop not paying yourself. Finally turn a profit, and finally build the company you once dreamed of. The dreams that you have, you can make them come true. You're probably going to need some help. Hey, so like and subscribe. This is the kind of content I put out. And second, if you want some insight about what you should work on next, I'll leave a little link below this. It's a score app assessment, and there's 17 questions that you kind of fill out. It'll help me understand your company a little bit, It'll help you understand your company a little bit. It'll show you what you need to work on first. And then there'll be some insight from me about how I would work on that issue that you have, that you've identified. And then there's a chance for you to book a call. And it's not a sales call, but book a call, get to know me a little bit. I'd love to help. I'm dedicating myself to helping other contractors stop working for free and finally turn a profit and build the businesses they once dreamed of. All right. See you next time.